Hogstyle.
Hey everybody, welcome to Super Bowl weekend. It is the Hogseye. It's back to three of us for this week's episode, not weekend. I'm your host, Alex. You got Steve, you got Dave. Guys, happy Super Bowl weekend to you. I guess happy Valentine's Day weekend. I don't know.
It's kind of weird to say that to other dudes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that is weird. Especially Steve, you're single. Dave and I have both been married for too long. I don't think you get to a point in a marriage you stop caring about Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
too.
it's like whatever.
Yeah.
Have a cookie.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Actually, I've been one of the
yes.
fortunate ones. I've been one of the fortunate ones. My wife isn't one of them. Never has been one of those. Like, it's Valentine's Day. How come you haven't got me this?
Yeah.
She's not a she.
Good.
Yeah,
That's
she's
right there.
Yeah, she's not a very materialistic person. So
Oh,
I think
that's a keeper, man.
I'm very much willing to do almost anything for her Valentine's Day because she's not like, I need this, I want that, I want that. She's not a very needy person.
That is
very
good.
lucky.
Very lucky indeed you are. My wife and I were talking, and Dora was talking about maybe we want to get some meat and make like bratwurst, homemade bratwurst for Valentine's Day. So
That's a very Zeus thing to do.
it is a very
Sure.
Z's thing to do. Yes.
My news is I was in Las Vegas last weekend.
Oh yeah, you were. How
But
was
the
Vegas?
reason why I bring it up is it just happened to be Pro Bowl weekend.
Right.
And it didn't occur to me. Otherwise, I might have stayed a few hours later just to go to see the Pro Bowl, which I didn't watch at all because I was on an airplane.
Well, because it's also a flag football game too. you
Well,
know?
yeah. But it was at Allegiant Stadium, which
Sure.
was right there. So, but normally when in cities when there are major NFL events, there's tons and tons of NFL people around, but it didn't really seem like it. There were a few. It didn't really seem like it this
Steve,
time.
they were in different level casinos than you probably were.
No. Well, it's first of all, I stayed at a friend's house. I wasn't staying at any of them.
Oh
But,
yeah, sure.
But no, went to a concert at the Wynn, which is a high end place. So I mean, they were around, but it was a little surprised that it wasn't like an NFL packed weekend.
Sure. All right.
Maybe that just shows.
Two quick questions about the Pro Bowl stuff that happened. Did either of you watch any of the nonsense?
I was
they
on
did?
an airplane.
No, I
Sunday,
did not.
So I didn't watch any of it.
Well, so Steve, it was like they had like a watermelon talk. They did a bunch of stupid
I
things.
watched
played
zero.
golf.
I watched
Yeah.
not 1 second of it.
And
That's your question.
do you think this lasts more than 5 years before they just get rid of all this crap together?
It'd be a travesty if it goes another year.
I think really, to be honest, I think they like it because they like giving the players a vacation as a reward.
I don't disagree with that concept. I mean,
So
that's
I
nice,
think
but-
do I think they're going to end the Pro Bowl weekend? No, I do not. If that's what
Okay.
you're asking.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we get into our topics? We're going to talk Super Bowl at the end, guys. So if you really want to hear our opinions about the Eagles and the Chiefs, just wait till then. Yeah.
Yeah, but listen through. Don't just fast forward. Listen to the entire show.
Right. No. But we're going to talk Redskins stuff first, or Commander stuff, or whatever
we're
the
talking
hell.
Redskins.
We're talking Redskins stuff. All right. Makes Steve feel better. So Ron Rivera, we'll start with this one. This is the topic of stuff that actually happened. Rivera won the Salute to Service Award, which is for all his stuff he does with the military. I don't think there's any shock to him ever winning this award, right? Like, this has kind of been his bag as a
It
coach.
probably ought to be called the Ron Rivera Award.
Right. The thing that's interesting about the whole topic, though, is obviously when he won it, he did some TV spots. A lot of talk about how Sam Howell's the guy for next year, which we're going to get into some QB talk too today. But he also talked about Daron Payn and Chase Young and how the team didn't give Payne the fifth-year option. And, it kind of segues nicely into something, Steve, you wrote a while ago that we just haven't had time to talk about. And that is the Daron Payn contract, which is going to be a big thing for the team this coming offseason. And obviously they want to keep him. Everything Rivera said makes it sound like we told him bet on yourself, and now we have to reward him. That was kind of his mentality to not give him the the fifth-year deal.
I mean, the other end of that is they also gave him the opportunity to walk away unless they franchise tag him.
They did, but
Yep.
I think his mentality is we want to show these players that we want them.
And that's
Which is the
admirable.
right-
I think it's dumb to some extent, but
Sure.
I mean, look, I don't think the team was sure about him 2 years ago. They could have. The rules say that you can offer a new contract, contract extension after the end of the third season. So they could have done that. But I don't think back then they were ready to commit to him and say he's worthy of a long-term deal. And same with Chase Young, to be honest.
Right. He was making a lot of parallels to what Chase Young's been doing.
Yeah.
Because Young has had 2 bad years, let's be honest.
Yeah,
due to injury. Yeah.
And frankly, I thought he was kind of a weak defensive rookie of the year in his first year too. I mean, his stats wise,
it wasn't a great class
no,
for
it really
either.
wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go over this real fast. I don't want to spend an hour talking about this because I could.
No.
So, this, if you want to find this was called Analysis of Washington's 2023 Salary Cap and a Hypothetical New Contract for Daron Payn back in January 17th, and written by me.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, if you look at the salary cap, I estimated ultimately at the end of the day that they really only have about 7 or 8 million in free cap space. And how did I get there? Well, I at the time estimated the cap at about 225 million. It turns out I was almost exactly right. It was about 224.2 or something.
Yep.
And so Washington has currently about 197 million in total salary cap hits for 2023. So yeah, that's wonderful. But then this year they had 222 million in dead money. Now it was too much brain damage for me to go to figure out exactly how much of that's going to drop off. Some will, but I just took an educated guess, said about 15 million of that'll stay. So I said that puts us at about 215 million. Then you got to roll the rookie money into that, and so then that puts us. I said about 7 million. So call it, if you want to call it between 5 and 10, fine. But it's about that. So now Daron Payn. Now Spotrac has him listed at a $19.7 million average annual value.
Sure.
I don't agree with that. I think that's a little high. And I think that's higher than Washington will want to offer him, specifically because Jonathan Allen got 18. Jonathan Allen is the captain of the defense. He's a better player than Daron Payn in terms of he has more value to the team than Daron Payn does. I don't think they're going to want to give Payn substantially more money than Allen. Average annual value means a lot to agents, and it means a lot as kind of bragging rights, even though it's sort of it's a real number, but it's kind of a bit of fuzzy math a little bit. Yeah. So Payn got 18. So I think they're going to stick to about 18 average annual value. I refuse. It's dumb of them to give Payn a 4-year contract as opposed to 5. I think that's stupid. And I refuse to believe they're going to do it again. So I gave Payn 30 million or 5 million, 5 years at 18 million average annual value. And if you look at the percentages that Allen got for his guaranteed money, the math will come out to Payn getting about a $38.5 million signing bonus. If you give him a low first-year base salary, because Washington tends to do this to minimize the first-year cap hit, so I gave him $2 million as a cap hit. So what does all that do? Or $2 million as a base salary. What all that does is 5 years, $92.5 million, $38.5 million signing bonus, $50.5 million total guarantees, which is the second year guaranteed, and then first year cap hit of $9.7 million. And I think that's about as low as I could possibly get it, really, and have it be an honest contract. Now that's really too much, more than they can probably afford. They can do it in the short term, but long term with the rookies and all of that, they'd have to make cuts to do that. Obviously, Carson Wentz would solve that problem, but I think that is the ballpark to Daron Payn. $95.5 million, 5 years, $38.5 million signing bonus, $50.5 guarantees, first year cap at $9.7 million. I think that's a reasonable contract. I think that's fair. That puts him at about an even par with Payn plus 1 year. I think that is the ballpark we're looking at. I would not go more. Yeah, there's other players out there who have better resumes than Daron Payn.
There are, and he had now he did have a very good year. We should, I think
he absolutely did. That's just the why I even went this high, is because he had a good year.
And of course, the hard thing for this team in the end is going to be, can you invest all your assets into one position group like this and, not spend money on linebackers or corners or safeties? Because, I think a good balanced defense, you probably are having to pay one guy at least on each tier serious money. The best defenses are kind of built to be balanced on all levels, not just the line, for example. But I think your number is right about where he's going to be. I won't be surprised at all if he's around that 95, 100 million ish range.
Well, and getting rid of the redheaded wonderkin would give them enough room to do this and still be able to sign some other free agents. They're not going to be able to sign a bunch of free agents, like a bunch of high price ones, but they can do one. They could maybe do, one or two more like mid-tier guys. I mean, they if they cut Wentz, they can. If they don't cut Wentz, they keep him. Yeah, they won't be able to do anything.
And they have a couple other names on their own roster they need to keep. Like, I know Cole Holcomb's just an average linebacker that probably will want to keep him. Just, he knows the system. He's been.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a little bit later in the show.
Yes, we are, because that's
preview.
Technically that was our next topic, but we'll get to that in a minute. Dave, what are your thoughts on the whole price tag for Payne, which no pun intended in that line?
That was really an alliteration, not a pun. But go ahead.
Okay, fine, alliteration. Yes.
Honestly, I think Payne and Allen, we need to keep those two together. I think keeping that middle of that defense secure, especially they both stop the run. They both put pressure on the quarterback. They collapse that pocket, and they give no room for the quarterback to step up in the pocket. I just think ultimately, I think this could lead to either a Montez Sweat or Chase Young removed from the team itself. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, I've always been a Chase Young fan. I've never been super high on him. I'll be honest with you. I'd much rather figure something out where they move on from Chase Young, keep Montez Sweat, because that rotation they had on the other side, with Smith Williams, I think was one of them, and I can't think of the other.
Well, I thought that rotation was in there.
Shakatoni. I thought that rotation that we had all year was very, very effective.
It was.
And it also gave Montez Sweat the freedom to move from left to right and move him around the defense, where I think they should be doing more of him because he's so athletic and so strong off the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually think Montez Sweat's a better pass rusher than Chase Young coming off the edge, to be honest with you. But no, I think those numbers are more than fair. Of course, I think that'd be perfect. Payne, and I think if that contract happens, I think we could see something with Chase Young heating up a little bit, maybe even around draft time, maybe, who knows. But
you know what the most damning thing about the Chase Young Montez Sweat is that the defense didn't really get noticeably better when Young returned.
No,
it really didn't. The other
and his stats weren't good. His impact wasn't good.
And I think we also saw who freelanced the most too, from the story the year before.
I mean, when it comes to the whole freelancing thing, Chase Young reminds me so much of LeVar back in the day. It's not. It's ridiculous. Now here's my thing. We know we have a quality player here in Daron Payn. In the end, right? To me, I'd rather give money to a known good quantity and say, what if Chase Young becomes a good quantity? Because right now that what if is a big what if. And Rivera talked about that too, that they don't want to give him the 5th-year option, make the 4th year a prove-it year for him. If he proves it, great, good for him. But it's the bird in the hand versus two in the bush kind of question. You know what I mean?
I think the bigger question really is Phil Mathis. I mean, they wasted a draft pick on this guy. If you sign Payne and pay him big money, he's your starter. And so then you have a 2nd-round pick who has no ability to start and isn't going to start because there's 2 young guys in interior defensive tackles. So it's just a wasted draft pick, basically. That's the real shame. I don't disagree with anything you guys are saying about Chase Young, and if he proves himself, good for him. I've never really been sold on him either, Davis. I mean, I thought he was a good prospect, but not like the next coming of Lawrence Taylor or something like a lot of other people seem to think. But I think the bigger question is Mathis. I mean, are they just going
It's
to
a
basically
it,
waste him?
well, I don't think it's a waste. I mean, look, not last season, but 2 seasons back when they had Ioannidis back there behind them. They had good depth at defensive tackle, and they utilized it. They had a solid rotation of 3, 4 guys at
But
all
what's his
times.
future with Washington, though? Is he going to be a starter ever?
Well, maybe you're running more
How?
5-2 looks. Maybe you're. I mean, he's not ever going to be the starter, no. But you have 4 years where you have good depth again, or 3 now. Like that. I feel bad for Phil Mathis on that level, but it's good for the team if that's what your
Oh,
plan is.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. But it's
Yeah.
also not really making as much of a productive use of a second round pick as you
No,
would want.
no. Well, this
No.
team has made a history of not making good use of second round
This is
picks.
why you can't just willy nilly
Exactly
draft
what
the
I was
best player available and think it's good.
No. Well, but let's be honest. They drafted Phil Mathis thinking that Payne would not work out. So
Oh, clearly. Yeah, absolutely.
that was the whole point. It was more the let's draft for 3 years down the road thing. That was that move. Um, yeah. Look, I think it's going to be a tough decision, and who knows what Payne's thinking. He hasn't really spoken up if he wants to be here or wants to test the market like that. We'd have no idea about. I feel like. So we'll see how that all plays out. And then it's a question of how do you want to build this team right? Like, do you want to be D-line heavy, or do you want to try and spread that money out around your other needs? Like linebacker, like we were talking about, and that was what you wrote about, Dave, not Steve. Dave wrote about linebacker today,
Right.
and free agent linebackers specifically. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about what you have, and just what were some of your interesting highlights that came out of your article?
Well, the article that I wrote, I just took the top 10
Right.
linebackers coming into free agency. I didn't go super deep like I
Mm-hmm.
did in previous years. That's not worth the time. But I kind of focused heavily on this article being on coverage aspect for the linebackers because, as you guys know, and every fan knows, that our coverage on our linebackers have been rather subpar.
For years, yes.
4 years, yes. And just to kind of give an idea that we look at Cole Holcomb, who's been a very, very nice linebacker for us, and for a 5th-round pick, good against the run, can rush a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. His overall coverage rating in his career was right around 100.3 with last season at a 125, and that's pretty horrible.
That's what quarterback ratings were against him, to be clear, is what you're saying. Yeah.
That's.
No. That was his coverage rating in terms of his grade
Can you
in
please
coverage.
explain where you're getting coverage rating for the
Yeah.
benefit of the crowd? Because some people in the comment section were confused as to what that meant.
Okay, so when they talk about coverage rating on a Pro
PFF and all
Football
those
Reference,
sites. Yeah.
oh no, I went through Pro Football Reference for this. So basically, what it is they take in account of how many targets against that particular player in a route, the completions against, the yards led up, and so forth, and they give a rating. It's kind of like a reverse rating of a quarterback rating, where
Mm-hmm.
the higher the rating number for a linebacker is not a good rating like it would be for the quarterback. The higher the rating, the poorer performance and pass coverage
Right. We're
that they
going
have.
golf scores. I get it.
Correct. Yeah. So basically, you want your rating to be as low as possible in your coverage, and so that's where I'll go to someone like Tremaine Edwards or Edmonds, Tremaine Edwards, which is going to be the sexy name of this whole free agency. If Buffalo lets him walk, that is, which would be crazy to do that. At 25 years old, he had a coverage rating last year of 69.9. Which was rather impressive. And he had a 34% increase in the positive from the previous year prior to that. So with someone like Tremaine Edmonds, you see a constant progression in the right direction. He was always good against the run and so forth. So when you look at him, the average the average quarterback completion percentage against was about 65%. So,
He's
and for
going to be
linebacker,
expensive, though. That's the problem with a guy like that. It's humongous money, and
and
there's
you're
only
right.
so many dollars you can give out. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe they will, And again, if you cut Carson Wentz, you could probably pull another contract in addition to Payne.
Hmm.
But this is a guy who is going to have lots of teams who want him. If Buffalo even lets him walk, they may not. They could tag him, But if they
Yeah.
don't, um, it seems like he's probably a long shot for Washington.
And you're right. And listening to what you're talking about, paying and the contract and everything, that kind of gets me to thinking more on this one player that I focused on. I had the most intrigue on in this article itself, and I don't think it cost nearly as much. And I'm not sure what Spotrac puts him as, what the market
I'll
value
check real quick. Go ahead.
is Caden Ellis of New Orleans.
Mm.
Um, he
Now,
had
why did you like him?
I like him. Now, granted, he didn't have I think he was rated the fourth on this list for coverage rating itself. So he wasn't the best on the list, but he still had a good coverage rating. But the one thing that intrigued me the most about him is he seems to be a really, really good instinctive pass rusher. On 24 blitz attempts, he got to the quarterback 8 times with 7 sacks and 1 quarterback carry. So he was very, very effective on the pass rush. He led up a quarterback completion percentage of 61.3%, which was the lowest of all the quarterbacks. So the quarterbacks or of all the linebackers, so the quarterbacks had the lowest completion percentage against him in pass coverage itself. So he is absolutely a coverage linebacker. He's a bit undersized, 6'3", 238. So he may not be your prototypical middle linebacker. You want them roughly about maybe 245, 250.
Yeah, he's
Around
not a thumper at that size.
No, he's
But in
not.
today's NFL, though, there's a lot of linebackers that size. It's not
That's
like your
true.
daddy's NFL. And Spotrac's got him at a 5.1 million average annual value.
Oh, so that's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, that's the most intriguing player that really popped out. A guy I never even heard of until I did this article. And then every number I looked at, every statistical category, if he wasn't at the top, he was near the top. And at age 28, this is only his second full year starting. He's been in the year for 3 years, I believe. Second full year starting. And he didn't and unlike guys like TJ Edwards that are on here, where I think he was more of a product of the players around him for him having a good year out there in Philadelphia. You look at Caden Ellis, there were a lot of injuries on that New Orleans defense all year long. I mean, their defensive line was hurt most of the year. Lattimore was out for a good portion of the year. So it wasn't like he was protected either. So he did this well on a weakened defense, and he still performed these numbers. So that's the most intriguing name to me on this list.
So Ellis is a 2019 seventh round pick out of Idaho. And he only has 12 starts, as Dave said, 48 games played, 11 starts this year, 8 sacks. Basically, last year, 7 sacks, 78 combined tackles. He's a decent prospect, And I think you're onto something with the combination of ratings that he has means he's a pretty good player. Of course,
sounds like
it's
good value. Yeah.
Yeah, good value and not expensive. It's an open question whether Ron Rivera is ever going to focus on the linebacker group.
Yeah. It's been his Achilles heel, ironically.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they did draft Jamin Davis, obviously, right. But that didn't work out the way they wanted.
So the interesting thing is, Dave, you said it in the beginning of this, and it's your thought too. I get it. That you focus on pass coverage guys. I really feel like they're still convinced Jamin Davis is going to be their pass coverage guy long term. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think that's where they are.
What delusion are they under?
He's fast, I think, is their delusion.
Okay, well,
I know. I disagree. But that's the vibe I still have. Well, I think that if they're going after anything, they're looking for like that thumper. I think they're going to go after a guy like Van Der Esch or somebody who's going to be more that
Vander Esch
run
spends
stuff.
more time hurt than healthy. I hope they don't do
I know,
Vander
but I
Esch
think that's the
for their
style of
sake.
guy they want.
Well, if you want to go after a guy who can do that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not your answer going forward, that would be Levante David. Levante David's very, very good in the middle. He's very good against the run, and he's your thumper right there. He's a guy you can,
Right.
you could bring in for a year, maybe two, and then you draft a replacement linebacker for him in the long term after that.
Sure.
You don't bring in David to be your answer. You bring him almost like that stopgap and
Yeah.
so forth. But
Also,
the thing,
mentor
Dave
role
did
kind of
a
thing, yeah.
profile of Levante David. It's out there on the website if you want to hunt for it. By the way, what 2 weeks ago was it?
yeah, about 2 weeks ago, yeah. So, and as far as John Davis, myself, I'm hoping they saw his value, what his true value was, and his value was staying inside the box, covering that run, rushing the quarterback, and playing sideline to sideline. He's not a drop back in the zone linebacker. And if you put someone like a Ellis next to him, and if you play what that scheme, what was it, a 5-2-4 scheme, right?
Yeah, they played a lot of that.
Yeah, so if you play that, you have a role for a guy like Ellis right there next to John Davis, because then you're having someone like Cam Curl coming up and playing in the box anyways, and that's your additional, almost like kind of like linebacker slash
I don't know if
hybrid.
they played a 5-2-4 because they wanted to, more so than they had no choice.
Yeah, well,
But
when they were doing it 2 years ago, especially, yeah.
But they were effective running it because they have the safety personnel to do it now. So they can run
Yeah.
that personnel, and if you have Fidarius Mathis, who's going to be healthy this year, you have the flexibility to keep that defense going and that scheme rolling forward. Now this is me not doing any film studies, so it's just basically me kind of just.
I think that's a really good one to keep an eye out on. I love if I were a fan, I would think that would be a pretty good selection. Knowing that the odds of them getting Tremaine
Right, zero.
are slim. No, I wouldn't say zero, but slim.
I'd at least Buffalo to begin with anyway.
Yeah, I do too. I agree. Why would he want to leave Buffalo? Contending team. If the money's real out of whack,
that would be about it.
If the money's real out of whack, sure.
It's hard to picture this coaching staff really wanting to go after a big name linebacker, though. In the end, it really is.
Yeah.
All right. So our last Washington topic that. This was something I came up with. I was actually inspired to write something, which is, as you guys know, yes, rare, miracle.
We had to do a lot of editing.
Yeah. So I came up with this. I had this thought. Washington still hasn't picked their offensive coordinator. They also are going to desperately need at least one or two quarterbacks. Even if they want Sam Howell to be the starter, they're going to need to find some guys to be free agents, veteran backups. They'll probably have to draft somebody regardless. There's going to be at least two new quarterbacks in the quarterback room in all likelihood. So I had this thought come to me. Let's talk about some of these offensive coordinator candidates and quarterbacks that they've worked with in the past, because that makes a lot of sense that they would probably want to bring in people they're familiar with. So I looked at, I believe it was all 6 at the time, although now it's 5 because Charles London got a new job. So I had to delete a couple paragraphs from the article.
This, by the way, is not published yet. As of recording, it'll probably be Friday.
It'll be up tomorrow or Friday. Yeah.
Probably Friday.
Yeah. So I went through all the guys they've interviewed and some of the quarterbacks that they would probably bring in if they're trying to find somebody who knows what they want to do. First name, obviously, is going to be Ken Zampese. Now, Zampese's already here, so he already knows Sam Howell. Obviously, he would know Taylor Heineke. But the name that I came up with, looking at his past, Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton, obviously, was a starter for the Saints last year, at least partly. He had not a great touchdown interception ratio, 18-9. He had a decent 2,800 yards passing. But Andy Dalton would be a great kind of veteran mentor to bring in if you have a young guy like Sam Howell, in my mind. And they obviously Zampese worked with Andy Dalton when they were in Cincinnati, when Zampese was, I believe, also working with Jay Gruden for a little while there. So that was my first thought there, was bring in a guy who's, I think Dalton's 35 now, 34, something like that. He'd be
that or like 87.
He could also be 87. But yes, bring in the other redheaded quarterback, who I know we have a thing against redheaded quarterbacks right now, but
yeah.
Are you racist prejudiced against gingers? Is that what it is?
I'm not. But the NFL seems to be, man. I don't know what it is.
Racism.
The next guy was Pat Shurmur. That was the second interview that Washington did. Pat Shurmur's not been in the NFL. Looking at the guys he's worked with in his past, there's not a lot of great names there. The two that would make some sense, Teddy Bridgewater and Nick Foles, neither of them had a good year last year, and they're both probably washed up. If you're bringing those guys in, they're not competing. They're going to be third string or emergency guys, quite honestly.
Foles, I don't know if I'd put Bridgewater as an emergency guy.
Maybe not quite, but
Nick Foles, yeah, but Bridgewater, I think, still has some talent. I think he could be an adequate stopgap for a year if the team wanted to do that.
Last year he threw for 700 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 picks with Miami.
I never said he's going to be Dan Marino.
No. I know, but that it's just, let's look at like what they've done. It's not a whole lot. So then I went to Thomas Brown, who I think when Washington announced they were interviewing him, everyone went gaga because he's a Sean McVay guy. And, the NFL and NFL fans are gaga for Sean McVay and anyone who he touches. So the tough part about Brown.
There's a joke in there. Never mind. Go ahead. Forget it.
Steve PG.
The thing about Brown is he's not been in the NFL that long, so there's not a lot of track record there. They brought in Baker Mayfield in L.A. this year, so that could maybe be a thing. And of course, Jared Goff is probably getting cut or at least restructured, right? Like,
I'm gonna call Baker Mayfield things sure to be mediocre.
Yes. Oh, none of these are good.
No.
I'm just saying they're there. And
it's possible.
Given that Washington's saying they don't want to spend a lot of money on quarterback this year, they're not going to.
I'd take Jared Goff before I took Baker Mayfield if you've given me the choice.
Well, so he's obviously under contract with the Lions, but I think his contract's $30 million next year, or they could cut him and save $20 million. So, or restructure him, I guess. But
by the way, I told you guys I was in Las Vegas. Well, I flew there sitting immediately across the aisle from a scout for the Raiders who does know I have a podcast. And I said, "Hey, are you going to keep Derek Carr? I think you ought to keep Derek Carr." I was just babbling, And he said, "Well, everybody thinks we have to trade him by March, but it can be later than that." And I got the distinct impression from talking to this guy that getting rid of Derek Carr is going to happen, but it may not come when people think. Take that for what you will. I'm not going to say a name, but the guy was a real scout for the Raiders. Yeah.
Interesting.
So apparently, I would guess he doesn't have some sort of roster bonus that would kill them by new league year then, probably.
Right. And if you're listening, sorry.
Yeah. Well, you didn't say a name.
No, I did not say a name.
No. And they probably have scouts flying all over the place. Who knows who knows who was flying where from when?
True.
So
he didn't say where he was coming from or anything. So
no. I mean, I can make a guess, but I'm not going to even.
Well, I mean, the flight was from Houston. I've publicly said I live in Houston. That doesn't mean that he was there.
He could have been in Houston on a layover for all you know.
It was Southwest Airlines. He could have been from anywhere.
Houston's a hub, right?
Yes,
they're
it
a big
is.
hub.
Well, Southwest doesn't have hubs, but they have. Yes, you can come from anywhere. Yes.
Right. Houston's got major airports everywhere. Mm-hmm. They've got like 20 airports in Houston. It's insane.
Well, no, there aren't 20 airports, but continue.
Sure they're not. All right, Anthony Lynn, been with the 49ers. So obviously, if you would think if Anthony Lynn somehow gets this job, one of those 500 good quarterbacks they have in San Francisco is going to come along with them because they're all going to get cut for Brock Purdy now, all their good quarterbacks that they've had. But I went with a different name because, again, Washington doesn't want to spend money. Tyrod Taylor followed Anthony Lynn from Buffalo to the Chargers, and I didn't even realize Tyrod Taylor hadn't retired. I thought that after that lung puncture thing, he was done.
No, yeah, that first of all, what a horrible story.
Horrible
what
story,
happened to
right?
him.
Yeah,
I think Tyrod Taylor's another guy, like, things sure to be mediocre.
sure. But if
He
you're
would
looking for
be,
backups,
I mean, of the guys you've named so far, well, continue. I'll continue.
sure. And remember the concept is coaches will want to bring somebody who knows their system. That's the
Right.
whole idea, right? Like, it's not sexy names, it's logical names. All right, so Eric Studsville, or is it Studsville? I can't remember. I don't remember how it's pronounced.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's only
I'm not
worked
going to
with
call a man
terrible
a stud,
quarterbacks.
so we're going to go with Studesville.
All right, he's only worked with terrible quarterbacks for the most part. Brock Osweiler, Josh Rosen. He was with Ryan Tannehill in Miami, but I'm not gonna Tannehill's not going anywhere. I don't think.
That's another guy in the Hall of Mediocrity.
Yeah. Jacoby Brissett would be anher guy in the Hall of Mediocrity.
He wants to rise up to the Hall of Mediocrity.
Yeah. That whole hall is like, hey, we're in the basement of the Hall of Mediocrity, you know. Except for Tannehill, who is at least an average Jag. The rest of them hang out in the basement wanting to see if there's
wanted
an
to
opening.
move up to the first floor of the Hall of
Right.
Mediocrity.
Yeah. Or maybe they're even in the sub basement looking for the basement if it's
They
Josh
might be
Rosen.
the ticket takers to the Hall of Mediocrity.
Of course, the last name I have in my list in this discussion is Bieniemy, because apparently that's why Washington hasn't hired anybody, because they're waiting for Eric Bieniemy and they think they're going to get him somehow. Don't know. Bieniemy, I actually had a tough time. Chase Daniel was
right?
Yeah, Chase Daniel is
It'd make you happy, Dave, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Your team, Patrick Mahomes. Then we'd get to see his brother dance on Sean Taylor's grave every week.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be fun?
I don't think that would happen.
Yeah.
But Chase Daniel was the only name I could think of, looking at all, because Bieniemy's been around forever.
It'd be a bit ironic, wouldn't it?
It would be super. Imagine if Chase Daniel came here and it's like he's 35 now. It's his last year or so as a
Back
backup.
to where it all started.
Yep. Because for those who don't remember, he came here. He was not drafted, but he was a free agent, and he was here in 2009 as a rookie in the preseason, and then he got cut. Or he might have been on the practice squad for a while and then got cut, but it wasn't long. It was a cup of coffee. And he's made a whole career. I did the math. Chase Daniel has averaged 13 completions a season for his 15-year career or whatever it is.
And made some good money doing so.
Oh, yeah. He's made like $40 million or something ridiculous.
Man.
Yeah. So for the record, because it interests me, Chase Daniels has 5 starts since between 2010 and 2022, which is 13th season. He started 5. He said 5 starts. He's made a total of 273 pass attempts.
Yep.
And he has played for
14
the
seasons,
Saints,
right?
Kansas City, Philadelphia, the Saints again, the Bears, the Lions, and the Chargers. And that's not counting the year he was
Here.
the summer he was with Washington. Yeah.
Yeah. Ridiculous journeyman career there with Chase Daniel.
Hey, it's the best career in the world, man. Backup quarterback, you kidding me?
He has to be like the most likable guy in the world to just keep getting these gigs. Too.
Yeah, I know he does.
Yeah.
So look, of these guys, I mean, Jared Goff would be the number one for me if
talent. If you're looking for a starter, yes.
Right. Yeah. And let's just say it. You know, I guess Ron Rivera told that idiot Mike Florio that on today, which is Wednesday, the day we're recording this, Grant Paulson tweeted this. Dave found this.
Yeah.
And so let's just read this. Florio. I'm going to call Florio idiot. Idiot. Will Washington look for a veteran starter? Ron, no. Idiot. No Wentz-like move? Ron. In terms of finding a guy you're going to have to spend a lot of capital on? No. We're not looking for a guy we've got to spend a lot of capital on. Game, set, match. Sam Howell's the guy. How dumb is this? I mean, everybody thinks I hate Sam Howell, and I don't hate Sam Howell, but I think it's freaking dumb to bet your team on a 5th-round draft pick that has played one game that
Yeah,
wasn't all that good. That's just
it's a big
stupid.
risk.
It's dumb, and I don't really believe Ron anyway. Why would Ron just commit to this immediately? I think he's lying.
Well, I don't know if he's lying or not, but my thing is, and obviously not all the names I've mentioned, but there's a lot of guys that in that list where if you bring in Andy Dalton, you bring in, I know we were making a lot of fun of Jacoby Brissett, but these are guys with decent amounts of starting experience. If they beat Sam Howell and you're wrong about Sam Howell, and that's who you're going with, like, you just have to live with that for a year. That's fine. It's not the end of the world with any of these guys. You know, one name who it wasn't on this list because I had him tied with London, who got a new gig. But Marcus Mariota obviously is going to get cut too. That'll probably be one of the bigger name free agent quarterbacks out there too. If you're like just trying to look at that kind of aspect.
I think your concept has a point, which is whoever Washington's new offensive coordinator is will want to have a guy.
Right.
And it'll likely be much like Heineke was Scott Turner's guy.
Right.
He'll probably bring this person. So it's pretty likely, if this is the group, it's pretty likely that one of these people will probably be in the Washington quarterback room. Whoever starts, this person will probably be there. So I think that's pretty good logic.
The logic, my logic is based in a fairly conservative principle of people go with who they know, right? Like that's, and they should, by the way. I think if you bring in any offensive coordinator, they should have a major, if you're head coach or defensive coach, this guy should have a major say in who's in that quarterback room, because the quarterback room is the most important part for any offensive coordinator. You know, it's not the line. Like, they need to have a quarterback they trust calling plays out there. That's basic, logic of the game. So, that's kind of how I worked back to this list and this whole idea. So, anyway, we have 20 minutes left. We want to talk some Super Bowl, I guess.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah? All right. So, Eagles had the easiest road to the Super Bowl of any team in the history of the sport, apparently, it seems like.
I don't know who would say that, but continue.
They had a very easy. Were the Giants much competition?
Yes. They were a good team. The Giants had they beat the Giants down for sure, but that doesn't mean it was an easy road. The Giants were playing well.
San Francisco's quarterbacks couldn't throw the ball in the second half.
Again, San Francisco was a major NFL had a great season, and they beat him down. Maybe the Eagles are that good. Anybody think of that?
Maybe the Eagles are that good where they just injure every quarterback they face, like that.
But listen, Purdy didn't play well.
No.
Even before he was injured, he didn't play well.
No, he was not playing great. I will grant you that. And they did a terrible job trying to, block and protect him, San Francisco.
And does everybody realize how good the Eagles' defense is?
Oh, no, it's very good. Yeah. The Eagles might be one of the best. Or the thing that's going to be fun with this matchup, these are two of the most well-designed and well-built teams that we've seen in a Super Bowl in a long time. Like, neither team has a major weakness. Like, where's the hole in either side's roster at this point?
I mean, the Eagles, yeah. I was about to call Jalen Hurts a weakness, but, that's just my remembering.
He might be the weakest link in the chain, and it's not a weak link.
Yeah, that's right. Not me saying he's a weak link that's sort of harkens back to his past, maybe. But, right. He's an MVP candidate this year.
Right, exactly.
For a reason. And so the Eagles, between Miles Sanders and Jalen Hurts, they're up to almost 2,000 yards rushing between those two guys.
Mm-hmm.
And they're averaging about 4.8 or so yards per attempt between the two of them. That's quality rushing. And you got a guy with almost 1,500 yards receiving in A.J. Brown.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's a receiving core is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, right? It's Kansas City on the other hand. They struggled with the Bengals. I don't think their defense is what Philadelphia's is. To me, that is the deciding factor. Is I think Philadelphia has a much better defense than Kansas City. Now, I mean, Dave's boyfriend could pull some Mahomes magic. He is probably a Hall of Fame quality player. But
Sure.
my view of it is I think the gig's going to be up, and I think Philadelphia's defense is going to ultimately take the cake here.
What are you thinking, Dave?
Well, it's kind of interesting that we get on this kick about, with the defenses and who they faced and so forth.
Dave's got charts here he's about to go into.
Yeah, we all love spreadsheets.
Yeah, right. That's true. I'm going to start with the 49ers aspect here, because the one thing that I hear all the time at work was, well, we beat up on that vaulted 49ers defense. We beat up on that vaulted 49ers defense. We killed them. We destroyed them. I mean, I understand some of the conditions that they were out. Their quarterbacks ran out. They were running the ball most of the second half, all that. I get that. So their defense, so the 49ers defense spent a ton of time on the field. Of course, with that offense, you're going to beat them down. I get that. But they still beat them down. I will not let that go either. But, the comment is that, well, who has KC faced? Have they ever faced anybody of that caliber defense? Well, in actuality, they have. In week 7 against the 49ers, they won that game 44-23. They averaged a very similar. Eagles were 3.3 yards a carry against San Francisco. They had like 50 rushes in that game. It was insane how many times they rushed the ball.
Right.
And well, I'm sorry, KC actually outrushed them. They had 5.3 yards per carry. And that's when they had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, on their roster at that time, who was kind of their in-between the tackle runner, which he's back and healthy for the Super Bowl coming up too as well. So in terms of production and what each offense did against San Francisco, you can argue that the Chiefs actually had a better game offensively against that team, because they also had, I'm looking at this right, passing yards. They had 417 passing yards against that defense. So Mahomes was no joke in that game. He threw for 3 touchdowns in that game, if I recall correctly. I have that right down there. But either way. So as far as like matchups head to head, they both played the 49ers. They both handled the 49ers, and they both controlled that offense to the 49ers. So that's a wash right there when you look at that. So now when you look at what they did against common opponents, that was kind of tricky, because they both Kansas City was 6-1, where Eagles are 6-0. They both struggled against the Colts. The Eagles last minute had to just beat them. The Chiefs wound up losing by 3 against the Colts. I think that was more of an aberration game than anything else. That doesn't really say much right there. But what was also interesting is that when you looked at the defenses they played, the top 10 rated defenses against the run, the Eagles averaged 3.4 yards a carry against 4 over 4 games against those defenses, whereas Kansas City they played 6 of the top defense against run, averaged 4.2 yards a carry. This team, these teams are so closely aligned in so many ways, it's crazy. Now, I get the Eagles defense. The Eagles defense is fantastic. It really is. But the Eagles defense also has no one to cover Kelsey. Who's covering Kelsey? Nobody. Hassan Reddick is not a very good coverage linebacker. In my article, it showed that. And they bring a safety down to cover. And this is a debate I had with a couple of guys at work this week. Well, they'll just have a safety over top, and they'll bring and we'll bring Maddox over top of Kelsey. Okay, well, if you do that, then Andy Reid in that screen game is going to kill you on the outside. Mahomes has been spreading the ball beautifully without Tyreek Hill to all his receivers. In fact, he had a more efficient year this year throwing his receivers than he ever has, because he's been spreading the ball around. And then it's like, oh, we'll just bring the pressure on Mahomes. Mahomes is one of the best quarterbacks in the league against pressure, against the blitz. So what are you going to do against Mahomes? So I kind of take this game in comparison to where the Chiefs played the 49ers in the Super Bowl against that defense. And that defense held them at bay. And the second half, Mahomes figured them out, came back, and they won the game. But the difference between the 49ers in this game and the Eagles in this game is that the 49ers had Garoppolo, not a great offense right there. But this offense with Jalen Hurts, who is, I think, a very key cog in this offense. You saw that when Minshew was out.
Oh, no question.
Yeah, he may not be the greatest of passers, but his all-around game and what he brings, especially in the huddle, his calmness, his coolness, and how well he performs in the big games and so forth, especially when he has to. What the Eagles bring in offense, the 49ers did not bring. So I think that right there is going to be the edge in this game. I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a good game. But I think ultimately the Eagles will end up edging this game out. But I think too many people are assuming, well, bad defense. Well, look what Spagnuolo did for the Giants when they went against the undefeated Patriots. Spagnuolo engineered a defense in the playoffs that did what? That kept offenses in between the 20, kept them out of the end zone, and turned the ball over. That's exactly what he's doing right now.
I don't think the Chiefs have a bad defense. I just think it's not up at the level of the Eagles. I mean, I don't think this is going to be a particularly high-scoring game. It's not going to be 42-38 or anything like that. I mean, I think it'll be sort of mid-level scoring perhaps because the defenses are both good. Yeah. And then a lot of times it'll take teams a little bit of time in a Super Bowl to get kind of through all the pomp and circumstance and start to play well. And so I don't know if these two teams are going to play particularly well right off the bat because sometimes they don't.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I mean, how much is the fact that this will now be the third Super Bowl for Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid together? I mean, I know the rest of the roster's change is over, but you look at obviously key parts there with your coach and your quarterback. They won't get fazed by the pomp and circumstance as much. Yeah. I think everyone does a little bit. We famously, I remember Joe Theismann saying that he didn't worry about it the first time they went to the Super Bowl, but the second time they, it hit them harder. They were,
I think Joey did say that.
Yeah.
So who are we rooting for here? So I like Dave's analysis.
That's always a tough one.
That was analysis. When I gave you his analysis, my rooting interest is a bit torn. Having sort of lost interest in Washington, I truly don't hate the Eagles as much as I used to, but the people, it's still the city of hate. And I wish all bad things to happen to the people of Philadelphia, except the Earl family. But I'm not, I still kind of bitter about Patrick Mahomes' little brother stuff.
Sure. Yeah. The most punchable brother in America.
Yeah. Don't disrespect Sean Taylor. So it's tough.
Just stop being on TikTok. It's just generally annoying.
Yeah. Or maybe the Chinese government can come get him or something. How about that? So I'm really, really torn as to who to root for. I don't know. I hate to be wishy-washy, but I don't know who to root for in this game. It's not just going to be automatically the Chiefs. Mm-mm. I really have not made up. If you make me pick, I kind of like. I guess we have to. But that's the object of this.
Sure.
If you ignore the people of Philadelphia, who are horrible human beings, I kind of enjoy watching the Eagles team play better. I play more than I enjoy watching the Chiefs play, so I would probably root for the Eagles in that regard.
I'm with you that there's a lot of there's things I like about both teams, and there's things I really don't like about both teams, and it's all stupid stuff. It is things like Patrick Mahomes' brother's annoying.
That's the nature of fandom.
Yeah. Yes. I really always respected Andy Reid as a coach, for example. I think there's things about him that are very weird and annoying at the same time. You look at the train wreck that is his family, that's a whole different story.
Listen, he basically prioritized football over the health of his children, and I can't be down with that.
Me neither. Me neither. That I hate to say it that way, but it's true.
That is what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm with you where I'm torn. I think I'm leaning Chiefs in terms of who I will like. When I sit down for the game, I'll know for real very quickly who I'm rooting for. I think I'm leaning Chiefs right now in terms of rooting
It'd
interest.
be tough for a Washington fan to root for the Eagles. I understand.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it too. Yes, but also the Chiefs are all. I've always this is not rational. I've always been convinced the Chiefs ripped off their whole Native American gimmick from the Redskins,
They
and
might have.
they did. They absolutely did. The
It,
same team colors, everything.
there's no question who Dave is going to root for, but let's hear him
Yeah.
say his spiel anyway. I mean, when you're dating the quarterback, like Dave is,
Well, what makes you think I'm even going to watch the game?
What
are you
else
gonna
are you
be?
gonna do on a Sunday night?
Nah, but now it for me, and I've said this all last week, and I've said it this week at work that I get what Jackson Mahomes did was absolutely abysmal, and I can't stand the fact of what he did. But at least this year it seems like he's been kind of curbed or quelled a bit.
Mm,
I think Mahomes has done, or his brother has done a pretty good job on just reeling him in, going, what, timeout, settle, go off in the corner somewhere and do your thing somewhere else. But
this is not your thing. This is my thing. Find your
right.
own thing. Yeah.
But if I, it's the fans, the obnoxious fans, and the one guy who's going to listen to this. No, that does not include you in this group. We've had this conversation.
Oh, you gotta name names, Dave. Don't just do that.
Give an
Well,
initial. Give an initial.
I'll tell you one mine. It's good old Bobby. It's
Good
a
old
buddy of
Bob.
mine.
Bobby is a very Philly name.
Yes. And I
Bobby from
talk to him
Philly.
all the time, and he's not included as part of the obnoxious fans. Him and I joke back and forth. We have a good time. I get that.
Mm.
But there are guys at that work I just cannot stand, and I do not want to see them after
Happy.
this weekend.
There's no small amount of irony from a guy from Philadelphia talking about the fans of the Kansas City Chiefs. Do you understand this? There's no more obnoxious group of fans than Philadelphia sports fans. You understand
the
that?
amazing thing is, and
that's what
having
I'm
lived there
talking about,
myself,
and I can't stand working around.
yeah,
So,
they're proud of it. So many of them. That's the weird thing.
I just think it's funny. You're entitled to your view of it, of course. I just think it's kind of funny that a dude from Philadelphia is talking about obnoxious sports fans in another city. That's all.
Well, I mean, it is what it is, I mean, we all have our passions, we all have our opinions. I get that, but right now, I mean, my rooting interest goes clearly on the Kansas City. I'm picking the Eagles in this game. I think the Eagles win.
Have you ever heard the old Billy Joel song "Glass Houses"?
Sure.
You might want to think about that. That's all I'm saying.
Well, let's be clear. Kansas City fans are fairly annoying too.
Oh, they are. They are. I'm just.
They're not
They are
fighting
they are
and stabbing annoying, but yes.
Well, I will say this, and and to be fair, being from Philly, I've been to 3 games at the link, wearing my Redskins gear and everything. I've always had a very good time there.
You didn't. Nobody harassed you?
No, I've had the insults. I had some little boy take his water bottle and spray it towards me and all that. It was only water. I let it go. I kind of I left it up with his father and everything.
Beat the kid up. What are you talking about?
But there is, and most Philly fans will tell you this too. There is a core segment of Eagle fans that they get to a point of, whether it's them just being overly obnoxious or just because of it's drunk and driven or whatever it is.
Yes.
I give that fan base truly a bad image a lot of times, but their passion and their love for the team really is admirable. I mean, even during their losing seasons, they always filled the stadium. They were always there. I'm going back in like the 80s, the 80s parts of the 90s before McNabb got in there, and so forth. That team, they always rallied against that team. They always supported that team. It always reminded me of the old Redskins fan base. And no matter how good or bad the team was, that fan base rallied around that team, and yeah, there are some aspects of Philly that I can't defend. I understand that and whatever, but
Can you guys, by the way, vamp for a minute? I'm gonna go find my rusty pooper scooper because I think it's could be relevant right in here.
Yeah. Go get some batteries for Dave too. You know, yeah,
Put him in a snowball and throw it at him.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
So I think this means that two of us are slightly conflicted.
Sure.
I'm sort of leaning Philadelphia, rooting interest. Alex is sort of rooting Kansas City. Dave is leaning Kansas City for sure.
Yeah.
And in predictions, I predict
win.
Yeah, I think we all said the Eagles would win, right? Did Alex?
Did you? I didn't say it, but yes, I'm with you. I lean towards the Eagles probably winning this one.
Let's end on this.
All right.
If you had to rank 57 halftime shows, how far down the list will this halftime show be? I'm going to say 57.
Well, there were some. I remember reading through the list of all the halftime shows at one point.
There haven't been 57 halftime shows, but yeah.
Well, there've always been something going on. Counting just the musical acts, which I think there's probably
starting with
it's bottom 5.
Yes.
Just guessing. And the last couple have all been terrible, but there were some really bad. Like we got a Baba Shot Quartet. It's 1960, dude. What are you doing? You know,
if you go back to, I think Michael Jackson was probably the first of like the big name acts. Was it?
Yeah. There was a lot of like we got like the fife and drum corps stuff.
Is there some problem that is rock and roll music banned from the Super Bowl or what?
It's just not popular with anybody under 40 now.
The Foo Fighters, Metallica fills stadiums.
I agree with you, but
those two one of those two bands should have been in the Super Bowl. Why are we having the string of washed up R&B singers and pop singers? I don't get it. I mean, this is what happens when you hire Jay-Z to run the Super Bowl halftime show.
Well, all I know is, and I get destroyed for this at work, is I couldn't care less about the halftime show. I just want the guys to get in there normal regular season halftime and get back out there.
I'm kind of with you. I mean, I don't really.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes time. But I'd like to see actual music, like a talented rock band. God help us. Again, the Foo Fighters and Metallica. Foo Fighters would probably be more, have more broad appeal probably. But
sure.
Both of those bands are stadium acts. I just don't, especially Metallica stadiums. I don't get the prejudice against rock music in the Super Bowl. I really don't. Again, this is what happens when you hire Jay-Z. You get people like Rihanna.
Well, even before Jay-Z would be on the scene, you didn't see a lot of.
No, this was going on before him. You're right.
It's going on like a decade or more since they've had a decent rock and band in there, probably more.
My big thing is, and this is directly since Jay-Z got hired, the audio mix has gotten worse and worse each year, which I find fascinating.
Considering they're lip syncing it anyway, and saying it, they're not even. It's not even a live vocal. How can
when The Weeknd was performing, I couldn't understand hear a single lyric because of how poorly it was mixed.
I skipped The Weeknd out of protest.
Yeah,
I didn't see it.
The Weeknd's got the one good song that's it. And here's what they should have done: play that song for 30 minutes, and everyone would be happy.
Just over and over and over and over again.
Yep. Because it's got a great chorus. Just play that. That's all we
need to be there because it's not like it was a live vocal anyway.
No.
Just play the song. No.
And also,
some of them have, like Springsteen insisted on live. Prince, I think, insisted on live vocal. And shockingly enough, those are both great performances.
Right. Prince has got to be the all-time great still, right?
No, I think U2 was all-time great.
U2 was good.
Yeah.
Biased Tom Petty, of course.
I love Tom
biased
Petty.
towards
Tom Petty.
When McCartney played, but I was a big Beatles fan, as a little kid who wasn't.
The one that was kind of disappointing in that world was the Stones, because they played a couple songs that weren't, immediately appealable to kind of the base audience. They had. I can't remember what they played, but
let's get to the Super Bowl and play our new stuff.
It wasn't that. It was just like some sort of more obscure Stones. So they played anyway. So, but those are the good old days. I mean, nowadays the halftime show is just a waste. Just terrible. They've been awful for years.
the visual spectacle that everyone keeps wanting to hype up is never anything impressive either.
The only one that wasn't completely terrible was recently was Lady Gaga. She was, I thought, a pretty decent show.
I thought, well, the Black Eyed Peas, they screwed up the audio, but that one was at least visually impressive.
I skipped that out of protest.
Yeah.
I skipped them all out of protest.
Because Dave just
I'm
even
not
wanted
really
a
paying
halftime
attention
show.
to them anyway. Yeah, like I'm usually getting more food at that point.
I mean, again, if either Metallica or the Foo Fighters are there, I would be lining up to watch.
Sure, of course you would. Also, as I always like to say, go back to having a guy in a jetpack. Just somewhere.
Have him fly around.
Yeah, because that's what you did in the first one, and we've never really gotten past men should be wearing jetpacks by now. So, let's put that in every Super Bowl, please. Just some dude in a jetpack flies over, and we're good.
I'm in support of that. I am.
Yeah.
I'm pro jetpack.
And always the latest in jetpack technology. It can't be the same jetpack. We have to upgrade this.
Surely there's a better jetpack than what they had in the 60s.
Yeah. And you know what? Disney's redoing the Rocketeer. I just found you some cross-promotional stuff.
Anything Disney does is sure to go wrong anymore, though. Disney's just a train wreck.
Yeah, but they're redoing the Rocketeer, which from my childhood was fantastic. So,
but name one remake that Disney's made that hasn't been a train wreck.
Oh no. In terms of that kind of stuff, they're terrible about it.
Yeah, they're all horrible.
Yeah, well, maybe Mandalorian.
They usually are anyway.
Yeah.
Most remakes, you usually always miss the mark anyways.
Yes, and yes, of the new Star Wars, certainly The Mandalorian was the best. I haven't seen it, but it got by far the best reviews and all of that. So
yeah.
I don't subscribe to Disney Plus, so I haven't seen it.
Right. Yeah, I barely watch anything that they have on there. I have a friend's password, and that's it. When that comes out, I'll watch The Mandalorian, and then I'll forget it.
I don't want to give them the satisfaction.
Yeah. All right, I think we're about done with this episode. I gave the NFL $1 million idea of cross-promotioning the Rocketeer with their Super Bowl halftime show, and they're won't take it.
They're going to steal it.
Yeah. Please steal it. Because, again, then I get my jetpacks, and I'm happy.
There you go.
Yeah. So, guys, this is the final episode of the 2022-2023 season. And then we move into off-season next week.
Yep.
And I move into XFL mode, I guess.
Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah, speaking of that, we have decided we are going to keep the show during this off season on
Once
Thursday morning for our personal scheduling problems. So we will not be,
for our sanity.
Yeah. So we will not be transitioning to Mondays. But so what the future will look like, we're going to continue with the series of free agency previews. We're going to start in with draft previews, and we're timing that so it'll come out, we'll be done right around draft time. And then later in the off season, we will do our traditional position group breakdown series. And so we're going to have written columns tied to the weekly podcast segments on that. So that's off season. And of course, all the regular normal stuff we do.
Yeah, and that will be our plan going into the next season too. All right, guys. Good season, by the way, to both of you. Congratulations, we made it. So we will see you all next off season.
And I hope I wasn't too annoying to everybody for my first year on the pod.
No.
It's fine.
We just talked over you when you got annoying. That's right.
That's what we do. We do that to each other too.
We do.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.
All right, later.